50 years ago this week, one Long Beach woman was in our nation's capital for the historic March on Washington. Peggy Damon Priestley was a freedom rider who fought for integration in the 1960s. Tonight, she tells me how she felt meeting Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and hearing him on that special day.
Let freedom ring from the pervasive slopes of California.
You just felt like the world was going to turn around. You felt like there weren't going to be any more problems after the march.
Because how could there be?
How could there be? We were going to save America.
Peggy Damon Priestley was 20 years old when she went to the March on Washington.
It must have been everybody coming, because we were driving from Boston and there were people coming from New York and there were people coming up from the South. And it was fascinating. It was just fascinating to see this sea of humanity just converging on the mall.
Peggy was there as a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
And so we could hear the swelling of the crowd. Here he comes, you know.
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I was to be married 3 days later, on September 1st, and the march was on August 28th. I had no dress, no nothing, because we were all about the movement.
From the age of 15, Peggy's life was immersed in the civil rights movement. She had gone to jail 3 times, participating in sit-ins and protest marches.
First time in Maryland, then again, twice in the Albany movement. And one time we were put in a stockade for 2 weeks. That was horrible. Meanwhile, you would look outside and the sheriffs were doing target practice, and they would sometimes turn their gun on us to tease us that, oh, we could kill you anytime we want.
Did you have the opportunity to meet Dr. King?
When we were in the city jail, Dr. King came and brought some of us toothbrushes and said, "Carry on, students."
Peggy says the March on Washington was the highlight of her life.
White people, black people, Indian, Mexican, it was just everybody coming together to say, we want justice, we want jobs, we want freedom, and we want it now.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city.
So obviously, we were just on the crux of change that was going on, but we had no idea of the sadness and the terror that still lay ahead. President Kennedy was going to do what he had to do, and of course he was killed, you know, months later. And the church bombing in Birmingham happened after the march.
I have a dream.
In your view, has Dr. King's dream been realized?
I think it's a dream deferred, as Langston Hughes would say.
And not a dream denied.
And not a dream denied.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men.
One of the main things, if you look at the March on Washington, it was jobs, justice, and freedom. We're still jobs and justice. I charge all of us to keep on walking.
Now at 70, Peggy lectures around the country about her civil rights and family history. She moved to California in 1970 and is married with 4 grown children and 9 grandchildren.
This is me with Sam Block, who had been stabbed. We were in Nashville, Tennessee, and we were trying to decide whether we were going to take him to the hospital or not. So many of the students that were hurt and bruised didn't want to go to the hospital, they just wanted to keep marching. If you look at the march, you don't want to say it was all for naught. Absolutely not. And that the words of Dr. King are important for our children and for ourselves, but our work is never done.
Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
And the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington is this Wednesday. And of course, we'll have coverage like
I still get chills when I hear that speech. And you know, the great thing about today is you can as young people, you can find his writings and his speeches on the internet and social media so much easier. So
that's so
worth
important.
it to look
And
at it.
she was just a delight.
Oh,
totally. Her house was
something.
just full of books, and she said those were her jewels.
Yeah.
Learning.